Welcome to another ShopperTech webinar, a service of the Shopper Technology Institute. I'm your host, John Karolefski. Thank you for joining us. Today we're talking about business intelligence. A new generation of business intelligence, known as data discovery, has quietly entered the arena of consumer goods technology. But is data discovery just another BI tool or a passing trend? Is traditional business intelligence losing ground in the marketplace? Joining me to answer those questions and more is Michael Scott, Vice President of Solution Architecture at AFS Technologies. Now, this webinar is interactive, so if you have questions, type them in the box in the lower left of your screen. We'll answer them along the way as time allows. We'll be posting some questions for you to answer as well. And finally, at the end of the program, please take a brief survey. Your input will help us produce better webinars in the future. So without further ado, here is Michael Scott.
Thank you, John. My name is Michael Scott. I work with AFS Technologies. And as John was saying, what we want to talk to you about today is essentially BI versus data discovery. So to start out, we want to talk about the reasons that we need any of this. The reason we need it is we live in a world powered by data. If you go on the web and search for something, the next time you go in to search for something else, you might start seeing ads for whatever you were searching on. If you're looking at pickup truck ads show up. Everybody has smart devices. Everybody has things with them that lets them collect data. And so really what we need is a very efficient way of using it. Now, a lot of the trends that we're seeing and some observations are with all the different portable devices, whether it's an Android or one of the Microsoft tablets or an i-something, these portable devices make it possible for you to really gather data from anywhere. You can take pictures, you can take surveys, you can gather all of this information very quickly and easily, but you need a way to look at that. Websites often gather data about you without you even knowing it. A little bit ago I talked about when you go and do searches, many times that is captured, it's sent to advertising agencies. So if I'm searching on pickup trucks or soft drinks, I'll start noticing those ads showing up more and more. The other thing is with so much technology out there, companies are beginning to look for one version of the truth. If I walk into my board meeting and I ask all the people that work for me, how's everybody going? Where are weak spots? Everybody pulls out their report from their system and says, look, my department's doing great. We're making lots of money. But somehow, the overall company isn't doing well. So what they're looking for is one version of the truth, one place to go where they can look at all of this data pulled together. Now, that being said, even besides the information that we gather and that we produce, there's also all kinds of third-party information. There's third-party information on different types of shopper trends, on point-of-sale materials, on pricing, on sales. There are all kinds of things that we want to be able to merge in with our data to give us better information. And these days, with the economy being the way it is, and everybody's trying to squeeze every penny out of every last thing. So what they're looking for, companies are looking for any kind of advantage they can get. And accurate and timely data can make a difference. And really, it can make a huge difference. So our agenda for today will be, we want to talk about, is traditional business intelligence losing ground? And before we talk about that, we're going to look at a little bit of what is traditional business intelligence. And then we'll look at data discovery. Why is it such an appealing analytical tool, and why is it such an appealing option these days? We're going to talk a little bit about visualizing data, and is there a benefit to that, and what is the benefit? And then talking about improving relationships with retailers using data discovery. And what we'll give you are a few scenarios where you can go in using data that you might not even realize that you have access to improve your relationship with your retailers. And then we want to talk about mobile capabilities and functions of data discovery, and even talk a little bit about the lines that are becoming kind of blurred between mobile and not mobile. Some of the tablets that were traditionally considered a mobile device, you can snap a keyboard on now, and you have a full desktop laptop. So we want to talk about that. And then we want to talk about the different tools you can use to effectively gain and compete, to gain and complete a consolidated business view.
Yeah, we have a poll right now on the screen just to set us up here. And the question we are asking the audience is, what kind of analytical data tool are you now using? There are 3 choices there, so just check one off and click Submit.
And as you're doing this, if you also consider that a lot of these tools, people might not consider an analytical data tool, but they are. Items such as Excel, Microsoft Access, other things where you can pull your data in and manipulate it.
Okay, you should be making your choice. There are only 3 of them. And we're going to skip through the results in 1 second. Okay, we can see that not currently using any tool has 40% response. And the second place is using a data intelligence tool, 36.7%, and using a BI tool, 23.3%. Michael, what do you make of that?
I think the data that we're seeing is supporting the trend that we're seeing also, is that the people who are using a tool are mainly using data intelligence tools, and that a lot of the people here attending the webinar are looking for a tool possibly to use. That's why they're interested in. We're seeing that the traditional BI tools are starting to decrease in numbers.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay, we have one question that came in. Michael, a question just came in here. If we have already invested in a traditional BI solution, is that money wasted?
Actually, it's a great question. If you already have invested in a traditional BI tool, the investment you've spent is not wasted. So one of the things, if you think about it, and in a few minutes we'll talk a little more about this, but really a lot of the foundations of the tools are the same. It's really the execution of the implementation of the tool and how the tools, the different features of them. So if you think about it, if you did a traditional BI project, essentially what that would entail is you pulling a lot of the different data sources together, different sources together to feed into that tool, and that's still something that you would need to do even with a data discovery tool. So it actually makes implementation of data discovery cheaper at that point, because what you'll be able to do is you already have consolidated data sources that you can pull from.
Okay, a follow-up question just came in. Please explain the differences between BI and DI tools, and please give examples.
Okay, great. Well, if it's okay, let me table that one for just a second. I have a slide coming up where we'll talk about that, if that's all right.
Fair enough.
Great. So really, what's the difference? And some people say tomato, some people say tomato, and really what we want to know is what makes business intelligence different from data discovery. Well, one of the things, if we look at the formal definition of what is traditionally BI, it's a set of methodologies, processes, and technologies that transform this raw data we were just talking about into meaningful and useful information. That information is used to identify and develop new opportunities. Now, to expand on that a little bit, with traditional BI, lots of times what they'll do is they'll sit down and say, okay, for this BI project, here's what we want our outputs to be. We want to see a report that tells us how much we're selling, a report telling us how many returns we're getting, a report telling us how our promotions are doing, a report telling us X, Y, and Z. And what they have is a list of essentially canned reports that they want to pull from the system. Now, with data discovery, it's a little different in that you can still take that raw data integrate the multiple data sources quickly together, and have them interrelated. But what's really different about it is instead of the output being a canned report that tells me how my promotions are doing, I have a lot of information about, say, promotions or sales. And what this allows me to do is it allows me to get the information I need out of the system today. So if I say, you know what, I want the same as I had in my traditional BI tool, I want to report on sales. I can go through and go over to my sales area. I can pull out that I want to see, the territory and the brand, and then I want to see, let me also pull in the number of sales versus the number of returns. And that might be great. Well, in traditional BI, that's what you get, is you get a list of that. But with data discovery, what you can do then is say, you know what, if I look at this year versus last year, I notice my credits, that I'm returning a lot more data than I was last year. And it's funny, there's always an example I use that seems to fit to all these different scenarios, is that we worked with a dairy company, and they had a really big push at the end of the year to go through and increase their sales. Well, their sales were increased, it was great, but they were taking a hit on their profits, which is crazy because they're selling more product. So the difference between BI and data discovery is their data discovery tool they were using then allowed them to go in and look at this and say, yep, sales are up, X percent, we'll say 12% just for sake of argument. But then returns were also up like 15%. And what they found is because they had a perishable product, and this is what their discovery tool was able to tell them, they went through and looked, and with this increase in sales, they're also getting a lot of the unsold merchandise back, and they were disposing of it. So even though their sales increased, they were losing money. The data discovery tool, you can get at that a lot easier because you're not just seeing a canned report. You can go through and start looking. You can go through and pull up the sales tab and say, tell you what, let me look at credits. Okay, credits. Tell you what, let me drag over the reason for the credit. The reason for the credit was expired. The reason for the credit was damaged. And if I look at this, I notice that there's a lot more expired product. So kind of very quickly and easily, instead of having to say, tell you what, I need a report that does this, it allows the people to easily go through the information that they have in a much easier way. So in everything we're saying, the traditional BI is losing ground in today's marketplace. Part of it is because it's the evolution of the tool. It is something to where, originally people had reporting systems. They said, I've got a reporting system, I just want to report. Then they went to a business intelligence solution, said, let me merge everything together and pull my results, this one version of the truth. Well, now what they're finding out is that a lot of the information that they have, a lot of the data that they have will tell them why, but they just don't know what to look for yet. It could be that I could go in and look at something and find out that, my returns are up, but my sales are up. Let me figure out why that is. And I can go through and look at different places in the data to find that. And what it is just an evolution of the tool to where the tools and the methodologies have advanced. Now, some of the things where these have advanced is it's almost like, I don't want to call it trial and error, but if you think about it, everything in life is trial and error. We'll come up with a great idea, we'll implement it, we'll start going to it, and we'll say, you know what, if I had this to do over again, here's what I would do differently. And so, when the BI guys, the guys with the PhD, started looking at this and stepped back, they said, all right, there's some great points. We can get all this data out. But tell you what, let's look at it from the other side. What are the bad things about traditional BI? And they said, you know what, it's lengthy and expensive. It's something to where a BI project could take, it could take as long as some of the projects that, some of the business projects that we're doing. So they're very long, very expensive, and sometimes by the time it's done, it's often obsolete. Business has gotten faster and more nimble, and faster, more nimble, and they need to be able to change direction on a dime. Well, if I have a 3-month-long project that is going to go through and say, you know what, besides the sales numbers, I also need to see reasons for returns and, trends across different brands or different categories or different, geographical areas. By the time I get those reports done, I might not need them. I need them today. And what I might find out is that once I get them today, they might not tell me what I need to know, which in data discovery, that's great because you didn't go write a tool, you just pulled some of the other information over. Right now, traditional BI can't provide the ROI that companies are looking for, and that's due to the time and the expense of the implementations. Something that we haven't really even talked a lot about is empowering employees. And it's one of the things, too, where we want to empower our business users, the guys who really know the business, not necessarily the IT staff, but the people who are sitting on the front lines of the business to go, you know what, this doesn't make any sense to me. I want to go through and investigate and see if I can figure out why Atlanta, Georgia sales are down when Raleigh, North Carolina sales are up. And they can go through it and they have all this information at their fingertips that they can manipulate and go through however they would like to find that out. Now, some of the things that data discovery versus traditional BI, a few of the things that it helps do is deliver more flexibility. So as we were talking about before, I can go in and I can look at my sales by territory. I can look at it by brand. I can look at it by brand and by rep. I can look at it by banner. And I can interchange each one of these things. I can do filtering. I can do void matrices. I can say, show me where ice cream is selling by the gallon, but it's not selling by the pint. And what I might find out is, actually I might find out exactly what I need to know. I might find out that, say, at the big box stores, or I'm sorry, at the mass stores like Costco and Sam's, that they're selling a ton of gallons, but they're not selling a lot of pints. And actually, I would expect that because they don't have coolers sitting at every register. So it actually helps, besides helps you discover things that you don't know yet, it helps you confirm things that you're expecting to happen. The ease of use with these. As I started out my career, I was a developer. And I can remember sitting down with business people and they're like, you know what, here's what I need. I need something that will tell me this and tell me this and tell me this. And we'd spend a day, explaining something, speccing it out, and then we'd go off and write it. And then we'd go back, try number 2. So one of the things is the ease of use empowers these resources to get their own information. It empowers them to go through and really find out where things are coming from. And the execution of these projects is really a fraction of the cost and time, because if you think about it, because of the improved interface and some of the improved processes and methodology, what we're doing is we're shifting this workload from our IT staff back into the business users. And they typically can look for what they want and find it at a much cheaper rate than having a full project cycle of design and coding and testing and producing training and all of this. I can just look for the information that I need. Now, data discovery can be used by everybody within the organization, but it's really appealing to the senior management. And the reason being is it helps them get at why. And we've been talking about that a lot, about getting to the why, but that's really what we want to know. We want to know, fact-based information. We want to know, why is this selling? Why is this not selling? They want to look at the information in a different way. In other words, I could say, you know what, I've made this new flavor of potato chip, and it's selling great, but something they might want to look at, they might say, you know what, the spice we use or one of the items we use in producing that is really about to go up high, so I want to see if one of the other flavors is selling just as well, because I might have to start substituting. So they might be looking at something for a completely different reason than the rest of the organization. And one of the most important things is, and if everybody, if everybody goes talks to your boss, you feel like you're in school again. It's like, well, why is this taking this long? Why isn't this selling? There's lots of justifications. And I don't mean to call it excuses in a bad way, but it's like, hey, we don't know why. Well, what it allows them to do is go in and look at it and see that, yes, sales are up, but then cost of materials is up too, or sales is up, but something else happened. So it allows them access to a lot of the facts without the commentary on it. And what all of this does is at the end, it allows them to make better decisions. It allows them to go in and decide that, yeah, this flavor of potato chip might be selling great, but it costs 3 times as much to make as the other flavors. So we're not going to push it quite so hard. We're going to try to push some of the other items a little harder that will make us more money. And people will eat typically whatever you put on their plate. So we might find it's a better business decision for us to make the sour cream and onion potato chips rather than the super duper barbecue ones. Now, as we're talking about the data, we'll talk a little bit about the visualization of data. My dad, back in the day before I started doing computers, he would bring home these green bar reports from work. And they had holes on the side, and they would print on this printer. It was all dot matrix. And he'd sit there with a highlighter, and he would sit there with a pen, and he would underline stuff, and he would look for things, and he'd flip through all these things. Well, seeing the data and seeing it how you want to see it, if you think about it, everybody's brain works a little different. When I was in school, I can remember sometimes the teacher would draw the picture on the board, and it would make sense. Sometimes they would, the way they wrote it, the way they explained it. So if you think about it, depending on how your brain works, you could say, you know what, I just want to see something in a grid. Somebody else might say, you know what, I've seen so many grids, I'm going blind. So you know what, if I see a pie chart here that has our product and their product, and I see that, we're making a lot more profit off, our product than their product, if I'm a store manager, this will matter to me. This will matter that, this other product where the guy came in and he's kind of selling it to me, I'm only making $1.50. I'm making almost twice if he uses our product. So one of the things that we're going to talk about a little later is it gives you credibility. If you can show them facts, it gives you a lot more credibility. And what it allows you to do is to look at things in various ways, because I don't know if you guys have seen it, but there's kind of a funny commercial where it has the call coverage maps for different cell providers. And it's an overlay of the United States, but they take off the United States. So all you see are these little blobs on the screen. And they're asking people, hey, what do you think this is? And people are saying it's aliens, and other people are saying it's the Aleutian Islands and all different things. Well, at the end of the day, when they put the overlay back on it, it makes it a very visually compelling argument. Everybody claims they're 99.9% coverage, but when you see the coverage map, it actually shows you. And it takes away some of the fine print of, well, we're 99.9% covered, if you only count these 4 states. So the benefits of data visualization is it makes it easier to understand. It makes the information easier to digest. And sometimes if I can just look at a set of charts and graphs, I can identify the front runners very easily or the people falling behind very easily. Now, for this reason, these data discovery tools are helping a lot of CG companies win at retail. And the reason being is it's improving their relationship. What it does, if I walk into a grocery store and I go up and see the manager, and the manager's like, I know, you're going to want me to increase my yogurt order. I could say, no, actually I'm not. Here's the reason why. And I pull up my tablet and show him, here's what we saw. We asked you to do that last month, and you bought 100 extra cases, but we took 70 of those back, so it actually cost us money. Here's what I'm wanting to do. If you'll notice, all of these brands are selling well. I want to get these other brands to sell a little better that are still under my company, but I want you to give me a little bit better position, and here's the thing. I'll actually, we know what everybody charges, so I can actually give you a little bit better profit for them. So actually you might increase your profits by not increasing your orders. So what it does is, A, it builds up some trust because you're not just trying to sell them something. They have people coming in there all day long trying to get them to buy their version of something. It's compelling information that will actually help them. If I'm sitting here and I've got 75,000 products in my store, I'm not going to remember every bit of profit I'm going to make, what I returned, all this stuff. But if you can sit down and show me some facts on, yes, this is what's going on. And the main thing is people don't argue with their own numbers. If you don't go in and try to sell them, if you show them the facts and let them make their own decision. A good example of this is I went and looked at pickup trucks. I've always wanted a pickup truck. So I went and looked at it, and the guy printed out the sticker. He printed out the incentive sheet, and he put them both on the desk and slid them over to me. And then he said, okay, you see the number on the sticker? And I said, yeah. He said, okay, you see over here on the left the items that I've highlighted? And he went through every one and asked me to write down the sticker price and then subtract all of those numbers off and then get to the bottom, ask me what my tax percent rate was where I lived, and I didn't know, so he told me. And then he got me to add it all up. And honestly, I almost bought the truck. In fact, if my wife hadn't been there, I probably would have bought it. But what it did was I understood where all the numbers came from. And I'm not a trusting person. I always feel like, oh, well, tell me what's the sales tax stuff you're doing. What it does, it lets them come up with their own numbers. It lets you show them the stuff, and they won't argue if they figure it out. When people know where something comes from, they trust it a lot more. Now, because we're talking about being in stores or being at headquarters, what it used to be, you could see people out in the grocery store with a cart. They'd have a binder in it, and then the last few years they might have a laptop in it, or they might have tablets. Well, now what you're seeing is you don't really see laptops in there anymore. You might see an iPhone, you might see an Android, you might see a rugged device, you might see an iPad, you might see some of these other devices. And what we find out is that these people are on the go all the time. You can get information 24/7. It could be something where you have a barcode on one of your shelf tags that says, hey, if you take a 2-minute survey, you'll get 50 cents off. Well, you have 50-cent coupons off in the paper, so it's not costing you a dime to do this. Well, they pull out their phone and scan the QR code, and it pops up and says, hey, how do you like the new flavor of mac and cheese with bacon in it? And it says, hey, is there anything we're missing here that you'd buy? And you're like, you know what? My kid says they had Phineas and Ferb. I don't know if that's a real product, mac and cheese. They love Phineas and Ferb. They'd eat it, so I marked that on there. Well, what that means is that you're getting free information on what your customers want from the field, and because of the QR tag, what store they're in, what time they did it, what they're going to buy instead. So all of that information is power. What that does, it empowers all of your employees with the data to help them do their job better. I could be the maintenance guy, and I could walk out and I could say, yeah, they sent me out here because one of the other guys said that the I don't know why my examples are of dairy stuff, but the milk freezer was warm, so I came out to fix it. And so he starts looking at it and he says, you know what? All the other freezers were done a month before this one was, so I'm going to go ahead and do maintenance on those also. Well, that's kind of a simple example, but they have all of this data, really the same set of data if you want them to, that your guys at headquarters have. And what they can do is they can pull that up and explain to the store manager something they might not know he's going to ask. If he says, well, you know what, I really want to be involved in that promotion, but I don't know that I really saw any profit from the one we did last year. Well, you can bring up that promotion from last year. You can show him that, if you look at this is what you typically sell. This is typically about what your profit margin is, and this is how much money you would have made. Last year, your sales increased this much. You didn't return any of it, and so if you'll notice, even if you're cannibalizing your own stock after the fact, the store is saving money, so he's going to participate, which means that gives you a chance to sell more. So it's going to empower all of your employees, whether they're out in the field or if they're back at headquarters, to use this data to help them do their job better. And kind of something we talked about a little bit before is fact-based data. If I can go in and I can pull up what the last 10 orders were, or if I can pull up some third-party data that says what the sales were for each one of these brands within the store. But if I can bring that up and show it on a screen, if I can show it to him somehow, you get a lot more credibility by showing some facts than say, well, but everybody likes our brand better. You should buy this more. It takes some of the subjectivity out of it, and it takes some of the salesmanship out. And what it puts in there are some facts. And, we talked about before, these guys see people in their store every single day trying to sell them something. So what they want to do is they want to see it quick, they want to get some good information, and they want to go. Now, which tool to choose? And I think which tool the organization chooses can effectively help them succeed or not succeed. So is it a BI tool or is it a data discovery tool? Well, instead of just saying, oh, you should buy tool XYZ, you need to ask yourself questions. It's one of those questions where if you answer all the questions, the answer pretty much presents itself to you. Do you want a tool that's pretty fast to implement? That one's kind of a no-brainer. Everybody wants it to be fast to implement. Everybody wants it as soon as possible. Do you need a tool that brings all your different separated systems together? So in other words, do you have an ERP system and a TPM system and a retail execution system? You really want to see all that data together. One of the biggies, and this is against BI versus data discovery, is do you want a tool that will allow you to shift focus or change your area of focus on a dime? And today that's needed. We might not even know it. There could be some type of natural disaster where if I'm at a hardware retailer, I might need to go through and say, you know what, I've got a bunch of plywood up in the northeast that I can pull down south because we had a disaster. So I'll put you down for 50 pallets of that. And do you need a tool that only headquarters guys use or other people? You need something only for your guys at headquarters to use, or do you want your guys in the field? Do you want people who are on the phone taking orders? Do you want them to see this information? If somebody's phoning in an order and they're like, okay, what flavor potato chips do you want? And they're like, well, tell me what sells the best. And you're like, let's say you're in Atlanta. Everybody loves Cheetos, so you sell them more Cheetos.
Okay, Michael, a question just came in here that relates to the point you're making. It says, much of the data that employees use is confidential and or proprietary. And let's see here. Many executives have concerns about making so much information widely available to their employees. Our fear is that it will not be adequately protected. How do you overcome this?
Okay. Well, how we overcome it is there's a couple of ways to do it. A, you can give them what's known as fuzzy data. In other words, you don't give them enough information so that they can backfit out. You might not give them down to the SKU level, but you might say, in this area, the cheese-flavored crunchy chips sell, typically 2 to 1 to the closest competitor. The other thing you can do is because that is a concern. If I have every piece of information about every customer on this tablet and I quit and walk to a competitor, you don't want me to use that as a bargaining chip. So there are a lot of different ways to do it. One of the things you can do is you can restrict the access they have to the data. So in other words, if I'm at headquarters, I might have 15 dashboards and I might have 27 different grids that allow me to get to a very detailed level. But if I'm out in the store, if I'm a field user, I might only see territories 1 and 2 because those are my 2 territories. And I might not see some of the sales numbers. I might see some kind of fuzzified sales factor, so we don't want them to know exactly how much profit we're making. So what can be done is you can restrict access to the data. You can give them more general data, but still data that's very meaningful. So the worst thing that can happen is if I set my iPad down and go to the back and I come back out and it's gone. We have mobile device management software where you can wipe that device. Things are password protected. And if somebody gets the virtual pink slip, if I call and say, hey, I'm not coming into work anymore, you can hit a button and take that data off my device. So while I completely understand that a lot of the data is confidential, it's almost like anything else. You restrict what they have access to, give them what they need, but don't give them absolutely everything.
Okay.
Okay. So now, kind of to do a quick recap of the things we've talked about, the main differences between, and I saw another question pop up, so let me kind of, as I do my recap, I'll cover this one too. Well, and this is, somebody put up too that most of the employees would have already taken it by the time they're leaving. That's true, but it's kind of one of those things where there's a will, there's a way. If we have somebody who has, they decide they're going to leave and they go in and steal the information, even if they stayed, they were going to steal. They were going to go get reports. They were going to get a flash drive. So it's one of those things where they're always going to be able to get some of your information, but we just have to take whatever precautions we can to try not to let them get, kind of the whole kit and caboodle. So kind of as a recap to what we were talking to is, one of the things we're finding out is that information is power. And the main thing between BI tools and discovery tools are you can get varied information out of a data discovery tool much faster than you can out of a BI tool, mainly because the BI tools are implemented by IT with a structured set of reports, where a data discovery tool is intended to be used by end users and help them go out and, not to be funny, but to discover their data and to go out and look through it. A couple of points up here that we have is incorrect, late, or just wrong information is useless. So, if we give our people timely data that's right, it doesn't have to be full details, they're still able to use that information. The accurate and timely data helps them make better decisions. If I'm going in and I'm selling strawberry yogurt like there's no tomorrow, well, I'll pull up and see that actually I'm out of strawberry yogurt now, so I need to quit selling it. I'll start selling grape yogurt or whatever the next best flavor is, and I'll sell a lot more of it. People don't argue with their own numbers. So in other words, if I'm sitting there and my manager looks at the sales and he said, sales are up but profit's down, instead of calling me and yelling at me, if he has a data discovery tool, he's going to go through and look real quick. It's almost hard not to go through and look and say, you know what, I'm going to pull this up and tell you what, I'm going to look at the brands under this territory, and I see that, these 4 or 5 brands are selling great, but this one is tanking. So let me now pull up that, and let me look at the products under that. And he can very likely get his own answers, which means he doesn't call the people out in the field. They're not sitting there talking to him when they should be selling. He can go find out his own information. And one of the main things is business changes. One of the only constants is change. And so we know that people will want to look at, sales quantity today, sales price tomorrow, profit margin the next day. We might have a recall. There might be all kinds of things. So as this business focus changes, and it can change much faster now than it used to, we need tools and processes that can change that quickly also. I need to be able to figure out that I need more strawberry yogurt and, pull up reasons to support that and have that. I need to find out that, hey, this big push that we're going to have to increase sales, that we actually tried that 2 years ago and it didn't work, so I can bring that up for my managers to see or for my bosses to see. So the timely, access to timely, accurate data is paramount. It helps people within the business make better decisions. And it's something where, there is no perfect answer to any of this. I'd love to say, hey, there is, we can figure out a way to show them this stuff where, they couldn't use it against us. But, it's one of those things where, somebody told me once that laws were made to keep honest people honest, not to keep criminals. Criminals are going to do whatever they want. Honest people abide by laws because that's what they're there for. So that being said, what I hope you got out of this was the main difference between a traditional BI and data discovery, and some examples of how a data discovery tool can give you better information and more timely information, and how it can have your business at any level benefit from that. So that being said, I was wanting to see if there were any more questions.
Sure. I remind our audience that our lines are open. Please put your questions in the chat box in the lower left of your screen. And we have 2 we did not get to, Michael. One,
okay.
Why is a data discovery tool faster to implement than a traditional BI tool?
If you think about, and I'll probably oversimplify the answer to this, but really if you think about a traditional BI tool, we go through and we start out with a similar goal. We start out saying, I'm going to consolidate all the data. But with the BI tool, we go out and sit down with the business users and ask them, what are your needs out of this data? So what are your needs out of this data? And they'll tell us, and we'll design reports and come back and kind of do an iterative process where we create reports. With a data discovery tool, what we end up doing is we pull the data together and it gets presented in the tool. So what happens is we'll go through and say, we go sit down with a business user and they say, all right, let me tell you what I need. I said, well, tell you what, before you tell me, let me show you. here's all your information on sales, here's all your information on promotions, here's all your information on returns, here's all your information on call coverage. Now if you want to, let me pull out 3 examples and show you how you can mix those together. And they're like, huh, so I can do this myself. I don't need you. Well, the reason it makes it a lot more cost effective is, not that we like eliminating jobs, but we're making our IT department more efficient. They push the data out there for us, and then we go through and look through it and get what we want. We're not constantly trying to design their needs for today. So it makes it a lot cheaper to initially implement, and then to implement ongoing, because I don't have to get new reports written every time my business need changes. I've got all the data there, so I just look at it a different way.
Okay, another question that just came in. Would syndicated data services like Nielsen and IRI be examples of data discovery tools?
I think the syndicated services would more be a source for a data discovery tool. And what I mean by that, and I think there are restrictions around the licenses you have to where you can pull this data into others' tools. And so we'd have to make sure you have the right license. But I think that if you do, it's a source, so then you can go in and use that information as compared to your sales information or your information out of your ERP or your returns, and correlate the two and help that data with your data help give you better answers.
Okay, one more that perhaps from a listener that came in late. You never said which tool was best. Why not?
Well, and honestly, that's kind of the $64,000 question. And the reason being is, and that was why in the slide that we had, we're not really pushing one tool here. What we're telling you is that if you look at the different needs, it's almost like buying a car. If you look at the different ones and see what the features are and see the different things you need, what you could do is you're going to find the one that's best for you. So a tool that might be right for one company might completely be wrong for another one. So it's something to where if you look at the different tools, you can, if you look at the different ones, you can find the one that fits your business best.
Okay, another question that came in. The real challenge is matching up the disparate data, internal and external, so that you can make any discoveries. Any thoughts on this?
Yes, and we have the same battle, because we're like, this is great. I've got these 12,000 stores, and I'm going to buy data for these 12,000 stores. But when they come in, there often is not the master ID that tells you, this store A is the same as this store A. So lots of times the matching up of the disparate data, honestly, it starts getting creative. We sort them by the banner, we sort them by the phone number, we sort them by the store number. We go through and look at what data we have, and sometimes we have to match them up the best way that we can. And I know that's not an absolutely rock solid answer, but all we can do is look through the different data sources we have and look for something in common. And sometimes with products it's SKUs or UPC or description and pack size, and there might be multiple things we have to do. And to be honest, even at times it might take some human intervention. You might produce an exception list that we have to go through and say, oh yeah, they spelled Doritos wrong, or whatever that might be.
Okay, and the questions keep coming, which is good because we're just getting warmed up. What about the well-known problems with doing analytics over transactional data architecture? How was this overcome without a BI data architecture?
That's actually an excellent question. And one of the things it is everybody heard about the cloud. In fact, I'm almost tired of hearing about the cloud. I've heard about the cloud so much. But one of the things it allows you to do is there are some very, very large computers out there that you can use when you need them and not use when you don't. So one of the things we can do is use a more of a transactional data model rather than a cube to summarize on the fly a bunch of numbers that we don't have pre-aggregated as you would in a cube. So a lot of things, the technologies and the hardware and the software are getting a lot better out there. So some of the things we had to do in the past, we had to cube data in order to make it accessible. So sometimes we don't have to do that anymore. So sometimes we still can do that if we're finding that there are things we need pre-aggregated. We can pre-aggregate things to a certain degree without fully creating a cube out of it.
Okay, one more. IT needs data and measure governance plus security, whereas business users need utility in creating their own insights. Power Pivot from Microsoft is best suited to this because it leverages Excel, which everyone already knows. Power Pivot does not require per aggregation, so it is both BI and data discovery, right?
Well, and honestly, not to give you a fuzzy answer on that, but to be honest, I love Excel. I love Power Pivot. There are a lot of things that we can do. Somebody told me once, Microsoft Excel is the most widely used reporting tool on the planet. And the more we kind of thought about it, it's like, you know what, that's really right. So really, it's hard without writing down and getting everybody to agree exactly what a BI tool is and exactly what a data discovery tool is. But the way I look at it, I would say it is both. It's more of a data discovery tool in that you can go through and really pull almost anything you want from anywhere and mix different things. With the main difference being is since it is more disconnected from the source that you're using a little bit, so you would pull data in from somewhere and then do it. It's what you would expect out of a more generalized tool. You're not going to get quite the speed or the refinement that you would get out of something designed, completely to be a data discovery tool.
Okay. And one final question: how can we contact you for more information? And I think we have that on the last slide, your contact information. Correct, Michael?
I believe so. So if there aren't any more questions, John, did you want to take it from here? Or?
Sure, I'll take it from here. And let's see now. For more information about AFS Technologies, you can reach them at www.afsi.com. And for more information about the Shopper Technology Institute, it is www.shoppertech.org. And it's michael.scott@afsi.com.
Yep.
To reach Michael directly. Okay. Finally, please take a minute to complete the post-webinar survey that will appear on your screen when you log out of this webinar. Thank you for attending. Michael, that was excellent. Until the next time, this is John Karolefski signing off for AFS Technologies and the Shopper Technology Institute.